You need to have a mini silent retreat every other Sunday. In reality, I am so much richer when I don't need money. So get your priorities right. Whoever is your loved people, your friends, your romantic lover, your daughter, your son, your mother, your family, whoever. Number one, please understand that of everything we teach them, of everything we shove down their throat, the one thing that makes a child grow into a capable adult is
boy, have we prepared something special for you guys this afternoon. As you know, my team and I work tirelessly to deliver on our commitment to you as an industry, our clients, our partners, which is to bring you inspired insights, to deliver them differently and to fuel your growth. So we thought we'd talk about a different type of growth this afternoon. Because in a world that's louder, faster, more demanding than ever, happiness seems to be the thing that we are struggling to hold on to most. And stress, well, that seems to be the thing that we can't let go of. Which is funny, right? Because we optimise for everything. We optimise our calendars, we optimise our companies, we optimise our relationships. Yet so many of us forget to optimise for our own well-being. Our very special guest this afternoon decided to do something about that. He is the engineer who reverse engineered joy. He is also the former Chief Business Officer of Google X, responsible for some of the most audacious technologies and biggest ideas the world has seen. He is one of the world's preeminent voices on happiness, on AI ethics, and on emotional resilience. He is a multiple best-selling author of books including Solve for Happy, Scary Smart, That Little Voice in Your Head, and the gift that he has very gratefully signed for all of you, Unstressable. But his most profound and important work continues with us here today, and I'm glad that we were able to bring him into town, which is founding a movement to make 1 billion people happy. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm and jet-lag-friendly welcome to Mo Gawdat.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. What a generous introduction. Thank you.
So you asked me to start with the origin of the song Thunder.
Did you hear that song?
Yeah, thunder only happens when it's raining.
Do you know the story?
No.
Do you guys know the story of dreams, Fleetwood Mac's? No. No.
Enlighten
us. So this was, you have to see the documentary if you find, I think it's called Rumors. But so this is Stevie Nicks. So Fleetwood Mac was sort of like succeeding and failing and succeeding and failing, not as big as they used to be, as they became, until Stevie Nicks and her boyfriend at the time, Cunningham, I don't remember what Cunningham, the lead guitarist, Buckingham, yeah, Lindsey Buckingham, right?
Knowledge.
Yes. They wanted him on the band, and he insisted that Stevie comes with him.
Yep.
And then he started to cheat. And you know, of course, as they became more famous, life became more interesting. And anyway, they were in the depth of fighting when they were making Rumors, breaking up, hating each other, literally shouting at each other in the studio, and then holding the guitar and singing together. Until on one of the breaks, Stevie is not needed in the studio, so she goes off and literally writes Rumors in one take, like literally writes the entire song, comes back and says, I have something to play for you. And she plays it, and literally they record it on the spot, right? Because, and this actually was what made Rumors, the album, I think #9 most selling album of all time. And the reason is because she spoke entirely from the heart. I mean, you listen to the lyrics, she's like, I freaking hate you. Okay? And it's very clear. It's Alanis Morissette of the time, if you want.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was very, very correct for our conversation.
Yeah, I find it interesting.
From the heart, right?
Well, and struggle and pain often are the bearers of the best innovation.
And that's actually really interesting. Yeah, it's times of struggle. We are in a very interesting time, I would say.
So let's talk about your story very quickly. How does the Chief Business Officer of Google's Moonshot Factory become the architect of happiness?
Oh. So I think all of us here, you see, we're capable. Humans in general are capable people, right? capable things. We end up optimizing for what we're good at, and we become really good at it, and then we fail at everything else and ignore the fact that we are failing at everything else. I got my wake-up call when I was very successful at a very young age. I usually say I had my middle-age crisis when I was 29. Normally, in my mind, defined as the time when you sort of achieve things that you've set out to achieve, that the world was promising you were important, and then you realize, is this it? Right? And when I was 29, because I am generally a mathematician, don't be fooled by the fact that I can speak English or any other language. Everything in here is numbers. It's totally very weird. Like, you don't come near that place. But it is a very weird place, honestly. I swear to you, if I tell you stories about how my mind sees the world, it's very unusual. The thing is, at the time, I wrote a piece of code way before Google in 1996 that scouted the internet like the crawlers of Google and basically followed 16 stocks that, I kid you not, I didn't know what those companies were. I had no idea what the companies were. And the crawler would scout for certain number of parameters, and then I wrote a piece of code that gave me buy and sell signals. And so I printed money on demand. Like, literally, to the point that my wonderful ex-wife, the mother of my children, at a point in time came and said, I think we should change the car. And I was like, how much do you need? And she said, $80,000. And I was like, okay, Wednesday. It's simple as that. It was unbelievable, okay? And so I had everything that they promise you is going to make you happy, and I was clinically depressed. It was quite interesting because the more money and resources you have, generally, by the way, if you know a few billionaires, they're miserable. Yeah. And the problem is that it magnifies, because then you throw money at your problem and you don't get any happier. And what ended up happening is I struggled with it, but I was like everyone else, if you don't mind me saying, if you find yourself in this. I was like, yeah, but that's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to work harder, right? And until my daughter walked into my office on a Saturday morning, and my daughter is life itself. She's truly a sunshine. And so she walked in, she was like, Papa, we're going to this place and we're going to do that, and Mommy said we can go have popcorn, and she's so happy. And I looked at her and I was like, can we please be serious for a minute? Okay? What's serious? She was 5. Seriously, when you really understand how we look at life. And I could see her heartbreak. I could see her crying. And I basically locked myself in my office. I said, I don't like you. This is not the person I want. And it took me a very long time to figure it out. 12 years to be specific. I tried to read everything I could find. I tried to work through the problem as a normal human, which I'm not. So seriously, I attended every lecture, and I went and met yogis, and they said breathe and focus on your breathing, and I'm like, this shit doesn't work. At least it didn't work for me, honestly, right? Yeah. And in my very highly engineered mind, I was like, can you please tell me why it should work, and then I'll figure out how to make it work for me. No, it's just because breathing is life. No, it's not life. Like, my heart pumping is life, drinking water is life. Like, don't give me this, okay? And I got even more frustrated until eventually I decided I'm going to do this as an engineer, which is very unusual. But I basically attempted to reverse engineer happiness in a very unusual way. Took as many data points as I could on the topic, then basically plotted them across different charts. I know it sounds mad, I really know, but in my mind, I believed there must be an algorithm that describes all of the points in your life where you're happy, okay? And if you manage to find that algorithm, then that trend line is happiness, and everything outside the trend line is unhappiness. I can literally write a piece of code, okay, that can regenerate happiness on demand. Weird, I know, but it freaking worked. And it actually, there is an algorithm for happiness, and it's actually very systemic. At the time, I decided to teach this to everyone that I know so that they think differently, and it worked, right? The only time when it worked differently was my tiny little Zen monk son, Ali. So Ali was always a Zen monk. Right? He was born as a Zen monk. Like, this child would never cry. Okay, he would wake up at 4 a.m., wet diaper, look at the ceiling, and then by 6, his mother wakes up, so he smiles at her like, can you do something about this? Very unusual child, very few words, so a man of very few words. But when I used to explain my algorithmic way of happiness to him, he would say it back to me from the heart. First, he would entertain me a little. It's like, oh my God, Papa, that's so interesting. And then he would ask me a couple of questions to make me feel that he's interested. And I swear, I remember vividly. And then he would say, oh, but you could have just asked me. And basically explains it in a way that's human. And I think between the two of us, we ended up in a place where it actually really, really, really works. Of course, you may know, or some of you may know, he then left our world, unfortunately. I think after he fully trained me, if you want, when he was 21, unfortunately, medical malpractice. Yep. And I was okay. You can never be happy when you lose a child, but I managed to find the resilience to go through it. And so, anyway, after he left, Aya Habibti, my daughter, comes to me and says he had a dream. This bit is always difficult for me. So he dreamt 2 weeks before he left the world. He had a dream that he told Aya about, that he was everywhere and part of everyone. He told her, I dreamt I was everywhere and part of everyone, and it felt so amazing that I didn't want to wake up. And in spirituality, everywhere and part of everyone is basically you being in your spiritual form, so you're no longer abiding by the rules of the physical world, if you want, which is, interestingly, the definition of dying. I didn't hear it that way. I heard Ali saying, you're the Google guy. You know how to deliver things to billions of people. So make what we built everywhere and part of everyone. In a way, I basically thought of it as a quote. I thought he was saying, you need to take the essence of what we built together and spread it across the world so that my essence is everywhere and part of everyone. And so that's where it started. I wrote Solve for Happy. Solve for Happy became a mega bestseller. Interestingly, because I think it was written in the language of the modern world, if you want. And then, I had this epiphany of AI, and so I had to resign from Google and start to work on 1 billion happy, basically.
Where do we all get it wrong when it comes to happiness as a North Star?
Cool.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So think of it this way: nobody's born unhappy unless you're born in a very violent environment, or a depressed mother or whatever. But if you take a general child, when the diaper gets wet, the child, you call it a diaper in Australia?
Yeah, nappy diaper.
Nappy is the British way, I think. Yeah. So anyway, one of them. So if it gets wet, the child cries, but then you change the diaper and the child is back to calm and contentment, playing with their toes and looking at the ceiling. Yep. Right. And so it's our default setting, believe it or not. We're supposed to be happy all the time. Now, the problem is we run out of that mode when they take us to school. Actually, this, believe it or not, was my very first epiphany. I remember vividly, I was in Seattle at the time. I was heading emerging markets for Microsoft's communication sector. And I used to spend a week in Seattle every month. And I'm sitting in one of those famous cafes in Seattle and playing music. Any of you, I don't know if anyone remembers Supertramp?
Yeah.
Seriously? Okay, this is a lot. So Supertramp has a song that's called the Logical Song. Yeah. And so it basically says, when I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful. Everything was perfect when you're young. Okay. And then it says, and then they sent me away to teach me how to be sensible, logical, responsible, practical, cynical, clinical. Okay. And that's the story of your life. You're born happy. Everything's wonderful. The birds on the trees are singing for you. And then they sit you down and they say, oh, no. We need to be serious about life, okay? You have to sit here for 8 hours a day, listen to this idiot, do exactly as they say, okay? And some of us rebel. We get told that we're wrong. And eventually everyone complies or gives up. And somehow, believe it or not, we are so unhappy, not because it's not attainable, it's because we set different goals. And we chase them viciously. Like, you may tell people, hey, do you want to slow down a bit and spend time with your loved ones? And they go like, no, I'm supposed to work harder. I'm not working hard enough. I don't understand, to be honest.
I want to unpack the logic of happiness in two parts. Let's start maybe with the young, right? Those that haven't necessarily subscribed to the narratives that we're always told. What is the formula for happiness? You've done an ocean of work trying to unpack the logic of joy. Where would we start?
So we can describe the formula, but now that we're talking about the young, why does a child cry?
Because expectations aren't being met.
No, the child cries because the current situation it's in is not safe. Okay, so the very raw explanation of all negative emotions is that they are a survival mechanism. If the child is hungry, the child will cry to alert the caretakers that it needs to be fed. If the room is too cold, the child will cry. If the nappy is wet, it's uncomfortable, may lead to a rash, the child will cry, right? So when you really, really, really look deeply at not unhappiness only, unhappiness, stress, and any negative emotion, envy, boredom, anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, in that little voice in your head, I wrote a chapter that was called The Equations of Emotions, okay? Which I know sounds really weird, but to a mathematician, it's actually very logical, right? The sort of logic of emotions is they are there for a reason, okay? They are there for a reason, and the reason is usually very favorable for human survival if you follow the reason, right? So unhappiness basically is a moment in time where you look at the world around you and you say, that's not how I want the world to be, okay? It's an invitation for you to change the world or change where you are in the world so that it becomes what you want to be, okay? And if you think about it, that applies to every single moment in your life where you ever felt happy or unhappy, okay? So when I told you I tried to reverse engineer it to write the equation, that's exactly what I did. I wrote down 98 data points of moments in my life where I felt happy, okay? And I said, what's common between them? There was nothing common between them. They seemed so freaking random, okay? And more interestingly, there were moments in them that sometimes made me happy and sometimes made me unhappy, okay? Same moment. So I jokingly always say, rain doesn't always make you happy or unhappy. Rain makes you very happy if it's your ex-boyfriend's wedding, right? It's wonderful. We love rain. But if you want to go, sunbathe and, on the beautiful shores of Sydney, rain is a very bad idea, okay? So what is common? What is common is that you feel unhappy at a moment where you recognize that what life is giving you is not what you want life to give you. That's unhappiness in a nutshell. Put that in an equation, it's basically happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the events of your life and your expectations of how life should be, okay? And that's simple because when you really understand the way the human brain works, your brain, like a computer system, ticks 60,000 times a day, okay? So at every change of context, your brain will simply take that change of context tick and say, is this what I want life to be? You sit on this chair and then suddenly your brain goes like, okay, sitting on a chair, is it too hard? Is it too soft? Is the person next to me smelly? Is it too cold? Whatever, okay? Why is your brain doing this? It's just verifying your survival. This is okay, right? And so interestingly, happiness is a survival mechanism and unhappiness is a survival mechanism. So unhappiness is a survival mechanism in terms of telling you something is not what you want it to be, okay? Happiness is a survival mechanism in terms of telling you this is exactly where we want to be, so stay, okay? Digest your food, replenish your muscles, close your eyes, rest, okay? Kiss your loved one, whatever you want, this is okay. And so this is quite interesting because if you take that definition, then happiness is not what capitalism has sold to you at all, okay? There is absolutely no happiness in Coke. Okay, and the girl in the bikini will not show up either. The one that is in the ad will never show up. Okay, you hold the Coke for as long as you want, she never shows up. Okay, And you have to question the credibility of the promise. Because the promise is there is happiness in certain things. That's not what the equation says. Okay? There is happiness in certain things when they meet your expectations of how life should be. Right? So if you buy a Ferrari, you're expecting that you're going to be liked by people. Most of the time, people despise you. Right? If you buy a Ferrari, you expect that you're paying $1 million or like $500,000 for something that freaking works. Okay? It breaks down all the time. At least in my days when I bought Ferraris. Okay? And they're horrible to drive. In reality, there's so much drama. Okay? Because I swear, I'm not making this up. There was a time in my life where I had the top of the line Ferrari and a very simple Jaguar. The Jaguar had a supercharged engine, and the Ferrari had a lot of drama. A lot of drama. So basically it shakes you around and it has a lot of noise and then you feel like you're a race driver. Okay? And Habibi Ali was driving the Jaguar. And then he looked at me and went like, you wanna go? So I was like, yeah, absolutely. I press the damn accelerator, he presses the damn accelerator, I never see him again. Like it's absolutely not, but the Jaguar was so smooth, right? So it didn't sell as a sports car. And I think that's the whole idea. The whole idea is that we somehow get promised certain things, right? And then we think that those things are going to make us happy. There's zero inherent value of happiness in any of them. The only value of happiness that's available is in you looking at your life right now and saying, this is wonderful. This is lovely, okay? I could sit here and tell myself, oh my God, I have 14 hours flight back. Or I can sit here and say, oh my God, look at the wonderful people I'm surrounded with. And if you start to look at life that way, interestingly, your perception of events will change. And your expectations will be set realistically. And 99% of your time will be happy. Unless you have a chronic pain or you're in Palestine, unfortunately, being bombed to hell. And otherwise, you're fine, absolutely fine.
So in practical terms, for the audience and for those listening in, how do we become better programmers of our emotional systems beyond just lowering expectations?
So the emotional stress part of this book was written by Alice. Alice is my co-author. So what I really love about Unstressable is when Alice and I agreed to write Unstressable, I said, okay, let me work on the equations. I swear. So I worked on the stress equations, and then I simply said, Alice, got it. This is it. This book could be 4 pages long. We're done. Okay? And I, went that way with bullet points and, a few numbers and a couple of symbols, and I thought you'll figure it out, right? Alice then comes in and says, no, hold on. And she writes things in all respect, like a woman, okay? So there are emotions in there and beautiful connections to human existence, right? And she wrote the chapter about emotional stress. So it's so interesting because if you ever meet Alice is I say it's because her father and mother really loved her. She was a very loved child, okay? And so she went through stress school, like every test that humanity has for a young woman when she was in her 20s, life threw at her. Her sister got diagnosed with cancer, then her father, then, her father died as a result of stress, and it's a very, 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 very difficult story. And she lost her job, and her boyfriend left, and all at the same time, all in like 2 years. And her view was quite interesting because she tells the story of how her typical, if you don't mind me saying, British upbringing was stiff upper lip, we're going to go through that, it's absolutely fine, right? We can plow through it, let's be strong, okay? But Alice is very feminine, very emotional. So the way she describes it is she says that the number one thing you need to understand about emotions is that emotions, one, are not there to annoy you. They're here to alert you that something needs your attention, right? And two, if you ignore them, they don't go like, okay, fine, and go away. As a matter of fact, if you ignore them, they bubble up more and more and more and more, and they explode at the wrong time, okay? I added to that when I had my podcast, I hosted Arun Gandhi. Arun is the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. And he wrote a book called The Gift of Anger. And I never prepared for my podcast. I only knew very few things about the guest so that it's a genuine conversation. So my very first question came, I was like, Arun, how can anger be a gift? Like, how can you say that? And he said, anger is an energy, like every other energy. You can use it to stand up and make a speech that changes the world, or you can use it to punch someone in the face. It's your choice. And so you take those three principles and you find that emotions are not the enemy at all, okay? You start to understand that emotions are there to help you. They're wonderful, okay? So Alice would suggest lots of exercises in Unstressable where you basically speak to your emotions. You let them tell you what they want. You know, like, what am I actually feeling? It's quite interesting, huh? Very few of us, if you genuinely asked someone, most of us who are conditioned by the modern world that we shouldn't bring emotions to the workplace. We all do, okay? We just let them out in the bathroom, right? And that's the whole idea. Count how many people would actually be boiling with emotions at work, but they don't show it. So what happens is, she says, talk to your emotion. Find out what are you actually feeling. Because the more we exercise the idea of I'm not allowed to show emotions, the more we numb our emotions. So she says, fine, if you want to do that at work, fine. But when you get home, find out exactly where the emotion is, because every emotion has a physical signature in your body, right? Find out where it is, put your hand on where you feel the pain, and say, what am I feeling? Am I feeling envy? Am I feeling anger? Am I feeling fear? Am I feeling worry? Am I feeling anxiety, right? And then basically talk to the emotion and say, anxiety, why are you here? What are you telling me? Okay? What am I anxious about? And then ask and say, what do you want me to do? It's actually really very interesting. Huh? You suddenly go within, and you realize that anxiety does feel very negative, but it's so good for you because it's telling you something in the future needs your attention. And we can talk about anxiety in detail. It's actually one of the most interesting emotions. But that's the idea. Huh? Now, if you speak to the emotion and you let it be there, okay, and then, understand it and welcome it and embrace it and say, oh, I feel anxious. That's really interesting. That's wonderful. Thank you for telling me that. And then you do what Aaron said, which is basically say, so what can I do with that emotion that makes my life and the life of those I care about better? It's really not that complicated. You know why we don't do it? One, we're told it's a sin, okay? And two, we think it's strong to ignore your emotions. Good luck. Good luck, honestly. You know what is strong? What's strong is to sit in front of those that you love and say, I feel very anxious. As a matter of fact, most of the romantic relationships that break, they break because one of the two sides doesn't share their emotions. Okay? So think about it. Huh? Think about the possibilities of you sitting in front of your loved one and saying, I feel hurt because of what you said yesterday. And by the way, it's not what you said that hurt me. I feel hurt because what you said triggered what my dad said 14 years ago. Okay? So I have a part of it to play. I understand that. But I also need you to understand that what you said hurt me. Okay? And all of this is alchemy. It's not very straightforward, especially for a bearded man with a bald head. Okay? But believe it or not, and I say that with respect, I'm going to look down so that I don't look at anyone. There are extremely attractive women that are worse than I am. Okay? And by the way, feeling emotions is not masculine or feminine. We all feel them. It's just that boys don't cry. So we're more oppressed as men to not show them. Okay? I can guarantee you that in my very senior roles that I played in my life, I had heads of states, CEOs, vice presidents cry in my office from the stress that they're feeling. Okay? Everyone feels that. But we just deny it as if there is no elephant in the room. The elephant will crush you if you don't listen to the elephant.
Do you differentiate between anxiety and stress?
100%.
How? How do we identify the difference between necessary emotional texture and, unnecessary stresses?
So this is a very long answer, so please allow me to.
Of course.
So I have to start from the mathematics, just because that's the way my brain
I
works.
assumed you would.
So Alice says we need to write about stress. Alice is the absolute master. She knows exactly how to deal with it. I never wanted to write about stress. When Alice and I started to work on it, I realized that because she told me the story of stress killing her father, that stress killed my father. Okay? And that I am a very, very, very strong militant against happiness and negativity because I know. And I never really figured that out. I was 54 at the time or something. I don't remember, right? I never figured out why I was so angry against unhappiness, okay? Until she explained to me that stress killed her father, and I realized, oh shit, it killed my father too. Now, so she said, we write about stress. I said, yes, absolutely, we're gonna write about stress. Let me figure it out. And funny, but where is the easiest place to understand stress? Physics, right? So in physics, an object is stressed when you apply a force to the object, okay? But the stress is not equal to the force. The stress is equal to the force divided by the cross-section area of the object, right? So if you apply a kilogram to a match, the match will break. If you apply a ton to a tree, no problem whatsoever. Why? Not because the ton is less for the tree than the kilo for them. It's because the square sectional area is bigger. So you take that, and the analogy applies literally to humans. Huh? Your feelings of stress are not related just to the challenges applied to you. They're related to the challenges applied to you divided by your cross-sectional area, your skills, your resources, your abilities, your contacts, and so on, right? And it doesn't take algorithms. When you see it, you get it, right? But it's very, very clear. Things that I freaked out when I was 20, okay? I managed to solve when I was 30. I solved with ease when I was 40. And in my 50s, I laugh at them, right? Not because they're any easier, but because my cross-section is bigger. So when you start to see it that way, you start to say that, okay, in that case, stress is completely within my abilities, okay? So if you look at my current trip, I flew from Dubai to Barcelona, Barcelona to Dubai, 6 hours in Dubai, then to Singapore, 26 hours in Singapore, then here, right? 39 hours here, and then I'm flying back to Dubai for 1 day, then driving to Abu Dhabi. It's very stressful, okay? But I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly how to regulate my sleep. I know exactly when to exercise. I know exactly what to eat, and so on. And so I'm not stressed at all, right? So when you start to see it that way, you start to understand that, by the way, by applying a tiny bit of stress that is manageable within your cross-sectional area to your life, in intervals that are not my whole year, these are certain weeks of the year, you can be very productive, you can be very effective, you can do things better. Right? If you are a little stressed about your presentation on Thursday, right, you may actually decide to focus differently and get a better presentation done. So that stress in itself is not the problem. The problem is that some stress will break you, okay? And there are 3 types of stress that will break you, okay? One of them is trauma. And trauma is very sharp stress, very, very sharp challenge applied to you in a very short interval of time where the application exceeds your cross-sectional area. You lose a loved one, you go through a tough breakup, you're in a war zone, you're in an accident, whatever, okay? So bad news is 91% of us will get the highest level of traumatic events at least once in our life. So a PTSD-inducing traumatic event, okay? PTSD-inducing is you literally break your life. So the event happens, you're on your bed, you're unable to move. Not just because of physical injuries, but you're just unable to move, okay? And everyone knows that. You lose a loved one, you break up with someone that's very close to you, and so on. Or worse. The good news is 93% of those, 91%, will recover within 3 months, okay? 96.7% will recover in 6 months, right? And 98% of everyone that recovers is gonna enjoy post-traumatic growth. So they come out of it much more fit to deal with a more challenging world, okay? So it's an interesting, if you want, tour of duty that life does, where it breaks you so that it makes you again in 6 months stronger. Okay? Not the most pleasant feeling. You should pray that you're one of the 1 in the 10 that doesn't get it. But if it happens, don't despair. It's just a question of 3 to 6 months. Okay? By the way, the 3 to 6 months is the statistics of the victims of 9/11. So these were people that were in the 9/11 zone, seeing the towers falling, or actually being inside the towers. 96.7% recovered in 6 months. So this is not, believe it or not, if you look at those statistics, trauma is not the pandemic. The pandemic of stress is not happening in trauma at all. As a matter of fact, trauma is like life. Okay? The 2 places where we break as a result of stress are burnout, right? And what I call anticipation of stress. Okay? Anticipation of stress or threat, whichever one you want to call it, is where anxiety is. But let's talk about burnout. So burnout is the result of any stress that is sub-trauma, so anything that's not traumatic, wherever it comes from, adds up to create enough forces on you that exceed your cross-sectional area. Okay? And normally what ends up happening is that the one last stress that gets put on you is your partner saying, hey, baby, can you come a little early? And you just completely break down. Okay? Right? Not because can you come a little early is unmanageable.
It's the last drop that the cup overflows.
It's the last straw, right? And so burnout is quite interesting because it's a freaking choice. Why? Because 90%, maybe if you don't mind me saying, every stress in your life other than trauma is within your control. This is going to sound a little annoying, so I'm going to annoy everyone. So Alice and I again worked on what. So the interesting thing about Unstressable when you read it is that we dissected stress differently. We said stress comes from different places and it affects you in different places. Okay? And so if it's coming from a certain place and affecting you in your emotions, your reaction should be very different. It's not just one vanilla flavor stress everywhere. So the 4 places that stress comes from are on 4 quadrants, basically. On the y-axis is it minor stress or major stress? On the x-axis, is it coming from outside you or is inside you? Okay? So if it's a major stress coming from outside you, it's trauma. That's what we described. Major, all sharp, very quick, outside you. Okay? The other 3 are very interesting. So we call them TONN, ton of stress. Okay? The T is trauma. The O is equivalent to trauma, but it comes from within you. Okay? We call it obsessions. And obsessions are, I could obsess about my bald head or my little belly. And I could literally use them for the rest of my life to make myself feel miserable. Okay? The most well-known obsession is, I'm not good enough. Okay? And many people would take that and turn it into traumatic level forms of stress on themselves. Okay? Because they tend to believe that it's worthy of their attention, it's the most important topic of their life, and they will literally spend their entire lives trying to defend that one obsession. To the point that if you go to one of them and say, oh my God, you're amazing, they'll go like, I hate you. I'm not good enough. Don't tell me that I'm amazing. I'm obsessed with the idea that I'm not good enough. And so obsessions come from who? From within. They're not from without. Okay? So they're not applied to you. They're your choice. You can choose to work on them. You can choose to see them differently. I can tell you a few tricks if you want to work on them. But you can also go and see a therapist who will help you understand your obsessions. Obsessions are draining the hell out of you. They don't exist in the real world. They're just coming from within you. The one below that is minor and coming from within. We call those noise. Okay? And noise are the little ones. It's like, look at you, you didn't sleep well, you look ugly today. Okay? Or, oh, look at you, your English accent again. Whatever. I can find any little thing. They're nagging. None of them appears to be big enough, right? But they're nagging, and you add 20 of them a day, and your day's not that great. Okay? Then the other N is called nuisances, right? And nuisances are quite interesting because none of them would break you. It's like that alarm that wakes you up in the morning. Seriously, how many of you have chosen an alarm sound that's kind? Right? Most of the time we choose an alarm sound, right? And then you snooze, and then 5 minutes later again, right? It's crazy. And I
Started the day stressed.
Yeah, but you start, your literal first second of the day is stressful. Okay? And then you wake up, what do? You take that phone to switch on the off the alarm, and then you go to the biggest stress injection in the world, either social media or mainstream media. Okay? And then on social media, you get this, beautiful influencer without the belly, okay? And you go like, what's wrong with me, or the dreadlocks, right? And or you get the mainstream media telling you that the world is falling apart, right? And so another injection of stress. And every step of the way, you get another injection of stress because you go to work exactly at 5 minutes before 9, so you hit the biggest traffic jam, or whatever. And you add them up, and it's quite interesting because then, as you add them up, then she goes like, baby, can you come a little early? And you're done. Okay? Now, here's the trick. The trick is if you don't want to burn out, you have to work on every one of those before that last bit falls. And there are simple exercises like, the nuisances, for example. I'm not kidding you. I do my nuisances list every single Saturday. So every single Saturday with my coffee in the morning, I write down everything that stressed me last week. Every single thing that stressed me or made me unhappy last week, okay? And I look at them, and I, with a red pen, scratch out the ones that are not going to stress me next week, right? So, and I had many conversations with friends on Saturday afternoon where I say, can you please be positive the next time we meet, or maybe we shouldn't meet at all, right? And it's absolutely militant. Because those things keep adding up. My commute. If my commute is at a specific, I'll give you a very interesting story. I spent a bit of my Google years in the New York office. Anyone been to New York? Yeah, shithole.
Well said.
Total shit, right? The New Yorkers, you know what a green wave is? So if in traffic lights, a green wave is if you drive at the speed limit, and you hit a green traffic light, then you continue at the speed limit. Theoretically, you should hit every traffic light is green. So they have that in the pedestrian crossings in Manhattan. But the speed is inhuman, okay? So literally, if you walk like an absolute freaking maniac, you can hit a green wave. And so all New Yorkers walk that way. And so the first couple of days I was in New York, I was like 20 blocks away from the office. So I would literally run through that thing. I get to the office completely out of breath. Seriously, it's very weird. And then I told myself, maybe there's mathematics to this, right? And so I did the math and decided, you know what? If I left my hotel 12 minutes earlier, 12 minutes, I could stop by a really nice craft coffee place, could give them all the time in the world to make my coffee. Then I could hold my coffee and walk super slowly like a Middle Eastern, observing the madness of the New Yorkers. Okay? Best day of my life. I arrived literally 12 minutes. It took 12 minutes more. I arrived on time. Okay? And you start to think of those things. You start to think of, first of all, the coffee does not mean I don't have to walk to work. It just makes the walk more interesting. It makes it nicer, okay? Or by the way, I could simply tell myself, you know what? I'm not going to go to work at 9. I'm going to go at 9:15 and take a taxi, right? And the taxi will not hit any traffic at all. All of these are choices, right? And so this limiting exercise, limiting internal and external. If you observe within you on the list that something obsessive in your own heart and mind is on the list, and you're unable to take it out, talk to a friend, okay? Send me an Instagram message, talk to a therapist, do whatever, okay? But seriously, stress is a hygiene exercise. It's simply, if I remove the stressors, then the negative ones that remain are making me more productive. And by the way, the negative ones that remain should never last more than a few days, ever. So please understand this. So this trip to me is a 10-day trip. And then a full week at home, right? The reason why is because you have to understand the biology of stress. The biology of stress is, do you know the movie The Hulk? Yeah? So basically, cortisol has one objective in the body. I mean, it has many, by the way. But the most famous one is when you get cortisol in your bloodstream, it's a signal for your system to reconfigure the hardware. So it basically sends more blood to your brain, more sugar to your brain, more calories to your muscles, right? It completely deprives your kidneys, your liver, your digestive system. As Alice always jokes, like, why would you want to, digest your steak if you're about to become a steak yourself? Okay? But cortisol is, in the biology of humans, designed as a response to a tiger. So the tiger shows up, you have to fight or run away. You do that normally within 7 minutes, because nobody ever survived the tiger for longer than that, okay? And within 7 minutes, you're supposed to go back completely down to default, right? The challenge we have is that we have chronic stress in our lives, where we stress day after day after day after day after day, depriving our kidneys, depriving our digestive system. And then you say, irritable bowel syndrome. No, it's absolute murdering your own self. You're doing it to yourself, okay? So this is back now to your question of anxiety. The third reason why we break down is what I call the anticipation of stress, okay? And the anticipation comes in 4 formats, fear and all of its derivatives. Interestingly, fear is very different than worry, is very different than anxiety, is very different than panic. They all seem to be from the same fabric, but they're very different emotions. You recognize that. So try to visit yourself when we're talking about this. If you feel afraid, the equation or the algebraic description of fear is a moment in the future is less safe than right now. Okay? It could be 2 seconds away if a tiger is there, or it could be 2 years away if Trump is president. Okay? But you tell yourself this moment is less safe than today, right? When you're afraid, you're trying to make yourself safer. You're either attacking the reason for your fear, or you're working on making yourself a little more defended, right? When you respond to fear that way, nothing's happening. As a matter of fact, you're not stressed. So once you start acting to attack your fear, you're engaged in the procedure of making yourself safe, and so you're not stressed anymore. You can't be stressed and engaged at the same time. The other 3 are quite interesting, because worry is not actually that a moment in the future is safer than now. Worry is, I'm not sure. A moment in the future might be less safe and might be safer, okay? So a good example is, are they going to fire me, right? Interesting, if they're going to fire me, I need to start searching for another job. If they're going to keep me, I need to impress them so I get promoted, right? And the problem is, when we're worried, we attack our worry as fear, right? But then halfway through, you go like, hold on. I shouldn't be searching for another job. I should be investing here, right? And so you keep flip-flopping, and change in itself and uncertainty is a very high stressful condition. So when you're worried, I tell people, don't think about what's scaring you. Make up your mind. Should I chill, right? Or should I panic? Or should I sort of like freak out, right? And if you freak out, handle it like fear. If you chill, handle it like an Australian, okay? Very easy, go surf, everything's fine, right? And that actually really is quite key, but it takes a bit of understanding of your emotions. I'm not afraid, I'm worried, so I need to make up my mind. Panic is another interesting one. Panic is not fear. Panic is not related to the intensity of the thing that's scaring you. It's related to the passage of time. When you panic, that means that the threat is imminent. So the closer the threat is, the more panicked you are, right? So when you're handling panic, deal with time. Give yourself more time, delay the presentation next week, right? Get someone to help you, cancel a few appointments, give yourself more time, right? Anxiety, finally, and then I'll shut up, You guys are going to be talking for the rest of the... So anxiety, interestingly, is also not related to the thing you're afraid of. Anxiety is related to your conviction of your own ability to deal with it. So you feel anxious when you feel that a moment in the future is unsafe, and I'm not capable of dealing with that. What that means is don't handle anxiety like fear, handle anxiety in terms of your capabilities. So what you need to do when you're anxious is work on your own capabilities, get someone that complements your capabilities, or actually, interestingly, investigate if you're just telling yourself that you're not capable, but you are. Okay? So most of the time we tell ourselves we're not good at this, but ask yourselves how many times did some of the things that scared you most never come true? Or when they came true, you managed. Right? And so the question with anxiety is to look at yourself and say, how can I give myself more abilities to deal with it? It's a very unusual emotion because its message is not fight or flight. If you actually fight or run away when you're anxious, it just reaffirms to you that you're not capable. Okay? So what happens is you become more anxious. The answer to that tiny detail, it's a very subtle emotion, is work on your abilities. So work on your abilities.
Last one from me, because I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask you their questions. We've covered nowhere near enough ground, but a lot of ground in terms of that, the little voice in your head and the pursuit of happiness and widening that sort of that square area or the volume where that force is put. For the people here, we wake up tomorrow morning. What's three micro habits that we can put in place that sit at the nexus of those three territories, right?
Four?
I'll give 3 plus 1.
One is awareness.
Okay.
One is awareness, and I see as like a brutal honesty with yourself of where you are in your life. Is that where you want to be in life? Okay? A brutal sense of honesty around everything you tell yourself. Is that you or is that your mom? Okay? Or is it your teacher? Or is it society? Okay? And you really need that. You really need to tell yourself. I'll give you a very interesting example. I told that publicly. So I fell head over heels in love 2 years ago with a wonderful woman who's still very close to me. Okay? She lived in the UK, has a booming career as a therapist, by far the best therapist I've ever met. I have a freaking mission that's driving me like mad. Okay? And long distance sucks. Right? A brutal sense of awareness is that, one, is that it sucks. Okay? So it's not fair to her and it's not fair to me. A brutal sense of awareness is, as much as I adore that woman, I'm not going to give up on my mission. And neither should she give up on her booming career. Right? Now, that takes a lot of reflection. Okay? It takes a lot of reflection on your own. It takes a lot of reflection together. Okay? And it takes a lot of wiping out everything that society and your heart and everything that you know about life told you. Right? Now, those kinds of conversations only happen in silence. And so when I talk about awareness, the number one thing I ask people to do is find enough silent time. And the biggest challenge in our modern world is that they don't give you any of that. Okay? You have to grab your silence. So one of my favorite exercises, and by silence, by the way, I mean brutal silence. So a silent retreat. I do 40 days of silence every year.
40?
40, right? This year I completely failed it, which is why I'm talking crap now. Okay? I swear it's the most important bit of my year. Last 10 days of July, all of August. Okay? Completely far away from humanity. And oh my God, most of everything I know happens in those 40 days. But at least what I ask people to do is you need to have a mini silent retreat every other Sunday. Okay? And it doesn't matter if you have a family, you have kids, you have whatever, tell them up front. Saturday night, you set your alarm to 3 p.m., okay? And you do not touch the world until 3 p.m., until your alarm goes off, right? So you're basically no music, no news, no phone, no conversations. You're completely sitting with yourself with a paper and pen. and it will feel uncomfortable at first, but if you build that habit, your life will flip in 3 to 4 times. Okay, you have to get to allow your mind to settle and to allow your emotions to surface, and it only happens in silence. So awareness is number 1. Number 2 is and part of awareness, by the way, is an exercise I call Meet Becky. So so I call my brain Becky. We can talk about that another time. But Becky, when Becky speaks, most of your Beckys are not listened to at all. That's why there is white noise at the background all the time.
Yep.
So meeting Becky, again, is 30 minutes on your clock. You put your phone face down, and you write down every thought that comes to your head, right? You write it down, and then you dismiss it. You basically say, okay, got it, what else? And you keep doing that until Becky very quickly goes like, oh, shit, he's listening. Like, oh my God, I need to say something, smart. And it starts to get the real ideas. Okay, and then eventually you go like, what else? And Becky goes like, you're still fat. I mean, you said that early, like, right? And so basically you're not allowed to repeat any ideas. And then you go like, what else? That's it. I swear to you, you get that moment. Normally for me, it's around 11 minutes in, right? You get that moment where Becky goes like, that's it really. Thanks for listening, right? And you get 19 minutes of total heaven. Total heaven. It's not silence of your mind through meditation. It's silence of your mind because she has nothing else to say. So interesting, huh? Now, the exercise is all about looking at that list afterwards and realizing how ridiculous some of those thoughts are, right? And if you scratch them out in red pen, you're literally telling Becky visually, don't bring this up again. This is stupid, like seriously, okay? And it's a very interesting exercise. So in meditation, you have levels of awareness, okay? And the bottom level is what they teach us. The beginner's level is be aware of your breath, right? The real top levels are to be aware of what you're aware of. And to be aware of what you're aware of is to be aware of your emotions, to be aware of your thoughts, to be aware of your sense of being, to be aware of your connectedness to the rest of the world, and so on and so forth. So try that. The second exercise, if you want to be happy tomorrow, or today if you want, is gratitude. Okay? And I don't say that as a spiritual teacher. So the happiness equation says events minus expectations. Right? When events meet your expectations, you're happy. Gratitude reminds you that events are not only meeting expectations, they're beating them so much that you're grateful for them. Right? But gratitude is the opposite of the nature of the brain. The nature of the brain is to look for what's wrong. Because the brain doesn't, if a tiger shows up right here, the brain doesn't want to say, oh my God, look at those muscle tones. Like, that's a majestic creature, right? It doesn't want that. It wants to tell you we're going to die. Okay? So you get an email, we're going to die. You sit in a cold room, we're going to die. Whatever. Everything is, we're going to die. Right? So your skill, and by the way, statistically, 7 out of every 10 thoughts in an adult brain are negative. So your brain is constantly telling you everything's wrong.
Becky's busy.
Yeah. Now, if you live in Sydney, I can tell you around 99 of every 100 things are right. Okay? If you're not reminded of this, travel. Okay? Go to Africa, go to Palestine, go to to Latin America, go to places where it's not safe, it's not gentle, it's not. Look outside. Seriously. And it does take. And look at the people. There are places where the people are very, very, very harsh. Any Germans in the room? Why are you here? Right? Yeah? Half, yeah. But I love Germans. I was in Germany with a German team a couple of days ago. But they are designed in a way that is very critical of life. Okay? And so everything around you can be seen as wrong. This is the entire design of the human mind. It wants to survive, so it shows you what's wrong. You have to tell it to behave differently. You have to tell your brain, no, it's Sydney, so don't F with me. Okay? Seriously, brain, you have the right to tell me what is wrong, but every time you tell me what is wrong, you also have the right to tell me what is right. Okay? And so I do that exercise very frequently. I do it, people will say make it part of your evening routine. I think you should make it part of every minute. So every time, so I in computer science we call it an interrupt level. So you set an interrupt level in your psyche where every time my Becky tells me something negative, I go like, oh, interesting. So you're upset about this. What is good about it? Okay? And for every bad thing that Becky gives you, you need one good one. That's if you're a beginner. Okay? If you want the reality of life, for every bad thing Becky gives you, you need 99 good ones. Right? Because that's actually the truth of life, that for you're not sick all year long. This is why when you get the flu, it's an anomaly. Most of us have never experienced an earthquake, right? Most of us have never been in a natural disaster. The standard of life is okay. And then anomalies are challenging. And so, as I said, gratitude in that sense is to sway the bias of your brain to actually see the whole truth. So your perception of events, okay, becomes real, okay, reasonable. And so as a result, you're comparing the true events to your expectations. The next one is look at your expectations, okay? And look at them in two ways. One is how realistic they are, and two is how good are they for you, right? So if your expectation is, I'm still not the richest man in Sydney, and I have to keep working my backside off until I am, okay? One, is that actually going to make you happier? Is it going to make you healthier? Is it going to give you more love? Is it going to make... Interesting. You may eventually tell yourself, but that's still what I want. Fine, okay? But if it's not, then set your expectations in a way that's actually good for you. Because once again, we humans are very, very, very capable. Okay? What you set your mind to, you will achieve, or at least you'll be more likely to achieve. So take it from someone who was flooded with Google stocks, okay? For absolutely no reason, I don't understand what they saw in me, okay? Spent the entire amount and hoping to die penniless. Because in reality, I am so much richer when I don't need money, okay? I'm so much richer because money has this very weird character of you ignore it and it comes begging for you. And I know that sounds really weird, okay? But money, if you chase it, it runs away from you, okay? Or at least goes a little further, so you always need to try harder. But if you suddenly say, look, I'm good, really, I mean, I need 10 of those a year and a washing machine. I'm good. Don't enslave me, money. Okay? And then suddenly the game becomes very different. Suddenly money goes like, but can I interest you in a classic car to restore? No. If it comes, I'll restore it. Okay? And it's really interesting. Huh? So set your expectations in a way that one is realistic. There is only one richest man in Sydney and one richest woman. So set it realistically and set it so that it works in your favor. And then finally, so we said 4, right?
Yeah. You asked for 4.
Yeah, I can skip the fourth one. Finally, the biggest unspoken producer of happiness is oxytocin. Okay, so it's that little hug. So I met someone in the event today. It's quite interesting that in my because I'm so weirdly, childishly energetic all the time, that people always walk to me and they ask something and they want something and they tell me about their business and so on and so forth. And then I was at South by Southwest and someone walked to me and said, can I give you a hug? Okay? Oh, I swear. It's quite, look, I mean, manly man, don't hey, I'm very straight here, right? But yeah, a hug is wonderful. Oxytocin is the ultimate way to find happiness. And if you don't have enough injections of people that you love in your life, you're screwed, totally, okay? And you may not even know that you're screwed because your complete system is off balance. So I would say, if you're like me, put it in your calendar. So believe it or not. So I'm back to Dubai tomorrow. And who do you think is the first person I'm meeting?
Your daughter.
My daughter. Okay? And you know what? It's going to be a very long hug. And then, we're going to talk for hours and I will see her laugh. And my life will be better. My life will be absolutely better. I'm going to see my friends, okay? We're going to say, rude jokes, and we're going to laugh our heads off, and I'm going to, bask in the beauty of having aged better than them, and it will be wonderful, okay? And you absolutely cannot miss this. You cannot miss a quota. So I'll shut up. But when I used to work at Google, Habibti Aya, my daughter, lived in Montreal. And so it would sometimes be either I'd fly to her or we'd be on a Zoom call or whatever. And I kid you not, Larry Page would sometimes call a meeting at 7 p.m. When I have a Zoom with Aya. So, you know what, Larry was the CEO and founder of Google, and I would simply decline and say, really sorry, I have other commitments. Simple as that, okay? Even though a meeting with Larry is always incredible, good for your career too. Really sorry, I have other commitments, right? Interestingly, when people came back to me and said, what other commitments? I'd say, can you do 6? I don't even need to explain to you what other commitments. I'm going to be with Aya. And so if they insist that it has to be 7, I text Aya and say, baby, can you make it 6? And she says no, I skip the meeting. Simple as that, right? So get your priorities right. Well, whoever is your loved people, your friends, your romantic lover, your daughter, your son, your mother, your family, whoever. Number 1.
I love that.
Yeah.
Sound advice.
Sound advice, yes.
And I think it segues perfectly into my favourite question that was submitted on Slido, and I want to be respectful of your time and our guests' time.
Are we getting questions on Slido?
They were
in a small room.
Yeah. Okay.
Give me oxytocin.
Okay. All right.
Who asked that question?
The question was, if you were raising young children today,
Who asked that? If you were raising young children,
what's
say it,
one
please.
thing that you would do, change, or teach them?
2 things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. So so please understand that of everything we teach them, of everything we shove down their throat, the one thing that makes a child grow into a capable adult is love. Okay? I swear to you, I'm not making this up. Okay? The 90% of the energy of an adult goes wasted on trying to analyze why they were not loved when they were young. Okay? 90% of all romantic relationships break because of traumas that were generated in childhood. 90% of I'm not good enough comes from a parent that says you were not good enough. Right? Trust me, if you pour love on your children, that doesn't mean you don't pour discipline. Okay? But it has to come from a point of, look, I love you very much, regardless of how annoying you are. Okay? But I beg you not to be annoying. Right? And it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. It has to be unconditional. And the test of unconditional is that when they're annoying, you still love them. Right? And if you feel it, you're going to show it. At least if you feel it, you're capable of showing it. If you're not capable of feeling it, then feel it. Because the worst thing you can do is to show fake love. Right? And then when you feel it, please, don't be harsh. Please show it. Okay? So that's absolutely number 1. Number 2 is, yeah, they are in a mess. This is a very strange world. Okay? And it's a very strange world that requires a very drastic approach. So I will openly tell you, I don't urge anyone to go to school. I definitely don't recommend the university. Okay? I definitely don't think that any bit of knowledge that you teach them is going to last more than 2 years, because everything's about to change. Okay? So the one thing that would really, really help a child today is to know how to know. It's to know how to know. It's a very different skill than what you get in any of the systems that we've built. Okay? To know how to know is me sitting with my AIs, I love those guys, right? And becoming super smart as a result. Asking the right questions, ask them in ways that are skeptic. Because AIs are trained to tell you, oh my God, you're amazing, right? This is ChatGPT specifically. Skip ChatGPT, please. Right? But the idea is that they need to understand that knowledge and skill is now at their fingertip. Okay? That any moment in their life they will want to learn something new, they can learn it in 2.5 seconds. It's almost like Iron Man asking Jarvis to download a piece of software to his system. Okay? And this is happening. This is happening so quickly. So the trick is not in knowledge anymore. The trick is in acquiring and converting knowledge, which is a very different skill. Right? You want to send them to school, it's because there are friends and teachers and other lovely things, fine. But don't skip on the idea that the top skills of the world today are agility, being able to, this is no longer a game of cards, right? In our normal, when I was younger, life was a game of cards. You play your odds, it's very calculated, it takes a very long time, it's boring like hell, okay? And this is a game of squash. So every one of us, you and your children, need to learn to stand in the middle of the court, okay? Looking, understanding where the ball is going to be this afternoon, go hit that ball and go back to the middle of the court because it's going to be in a different place by tomorrow morning, right? And that's an enormously important skill. It's a very difficult skill if we tell them that you have to learn physics the old way, okay? That's number one. Number two is don't believe anything that you're told. Okay? The reason why our world is so shitty nowadays is because we were brainwashed by a propaganda machine that told us things at every single juncture of your life, including what your purpose is, why you're here, why you're doing things, that Coke brings you a woman in bikini when you drink it, and all of that weird brainwash. Okay? All of that has to go for you and for your children. Okay? Nothing you're ever told is true. Everything that you're ever told today is coming from someone's agenda. Okay? And you need to learn the skills of following the money and understanding why are they telling you what they're telling you. Right? When someone sells me an ideology of why a child should be hurt, why are they telling me that? Okay? By the way, even if I believe it, I urge every person to say, take your stuff that you believe and tell yourself, why do I believe this? Why do I believe? I'll give you a very interesting example. I grew up in the Middle East. In the Middle East, there are very clear gender roles. Woman is a woman, man is a man, right? And I could live that way my whole life. Or I could come at a point in time and say, hold on, why do I believe that? Who told me this? Are there other opinions, right? Where do I stand on this? This is the ultimate skill of the new world. They're not going to learn it in school. They're going to learn it when they come and tell you, hey, mommy, by the way, this person said that, and you'll say, interesting. Can we take an AI and ask if that is true? Can we ask the AI if someone else said anything contradictory? Can we ask the AI what else did that person say? Can we ask the AI why did that person? What would possibly be the reasons for that person to say it? Okay? And I'm not asking you to be skeptic, but we've been so gullible, all of us, and it is a sin, if you ask me, to have believed all of that. Okay? And this truly, to me, the pain that the world has gone through in the last 2 years comes for one price. Okay? And we've paid the price with the pain because we need to wake up. We need to stop believing what we've been told. And everything that we've been told is a lie.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, please thank Mo Gawdat.
Thank you. Are we done?
I know time flies when you go out on a tear.